Hi, my name is Sarah Lerner, and today I'll be talking about scaling research, lessons from a preschool teacher. Like I just mentioned, my name's Sarah Lerner, and I am a senior program manager at Google. But I didn't start off my career at Google, or even in tech for that matter. In fact, I started off my career as a preschool teacher. Today I'm going to talk about how teaching preschool and scaling research have a surprising amount in common. My hope is that at the end of this talk, you'll walk away with actionable things that you can take back to your teams today to start scaling research. We'll start off with exploring what scaling research really means, and then talk about how I use these lessons from teaching preschool to transform the research program on my team here at Microsoft. Okay, let's first define what scaling research is. What is it, and why should you do it? I think that this quote from Behzad Serjani really depicts what we mean by scaling research. He says that as researchers, we can't talk to every customer. If I help my teammates have similar conversations, we collectively get closer to that actual lived experience. To me, scaling research is really about empowering teams and providing tools and mechanisms. Typically, people think of scaling research as a way to solve for the issue of more and more research requests coming in and not enough researchers. Since none of us have unlimited resources to just keep hiring researchers, this work and expertise must be spread throughout an organization. This usually looks like a combination of some or all of the following: tools and templates, training, and sharing insights. Unsurprisingly, studies have shown that teams who talk to customers more often have better outcomes. Jared Spool and his team over at Center have been researching what teams need to do to create great user experiences. And they found that one thing above all else is extremely important, and that is exposure hours. Exposure hours are the number of hours a team observes users interacting with their designs, and it's the biggest predictor of success. There is a direct correlation between exposure hours and better outcomes. They found that teams with members who spent a minimum of 2 hours every 6 weeks listening and observing customers saw far greater improvements in their user experience than teams who didn't, and teams with even more frequent exposure had better outcomes. However, it wasn't just enough to have researchers observing and listening to customers. Each team member had to be directly exposed to the users themselves. Simply reading a research report or watching a video was not enough. Each team member needed to be directly involved in the research. Now, why is this? Exposures to customers is an essential piece because it builds empathy and challenges assumptions. Seeing real people interact with your products and experiences reminds us that our users are real people and they're trying to accomplish real goals. That's why it's so important for everyone on the team to get a turn at conducting and participating in research. Okay, so you need to get more people talking to real customers, but how do you do it? Sean Ellis, the author of Hacking Growth, explains that conversion is a customer's desire minus the friction that they experience. In other words, change equals desire minus friction. It's not enough just to show your team the value of research. You also need to make it easy for them to engage. By friction, I mean any little bump in the road. Anything that could slow down or prevent someone from doing research is friction. Anything that causes just the tiniest bit of hesitation is friction. I'm going to share some of the ways that I've decreased friction in my team and what tools I use to expedite this behavior change. To figure out what I needed to change, I did some research of my own. I started by interviewing managers and individual contributors about what the current state of research was. I really wanted to understand the biggest pain points and current workarounds. I also sent out a survey to validate whether these signals I was hearing were real or just anecdotal. And here's what I found. 100% of respondents agreed that customer research was valuable. Great, off to a good start. 87.6% of people thought that customer research was part of their job, yet only 14.1% thought they had the tools and mechanisms necessary to perform customer research. In essence, I found that people wanted to do research, but it was too hard. The desire was there, so I needed to minimize the friction. I got to work building out a toolkit. I created a SharePoint site, I wrote a process guide, I crafted templates, I made diagrams, and a few people did research. We increased the number of studies from 0 to 29 in 1 year, which is about 2 studies a month. And we had about 13 people participate in research. However, I still wasn't having the kind of impact that I wanted. PMs, for the most part, were still not including me in their work. For example, we launched a program called the Cloud Skills Challenge, where users could take a set of learning modules in a specific time frame, and if they completed them all, they could earn a free certification exam. This program had a huge impact, and we saw engagement numbers soar. But at the end of the day, we weren't really sure why it was so successful. Did people just want the free exam voucher, or did they enjoy the competitive aspect? Or was it something else entirely? Since we didn't do any research prior to launch, it was really difficult to take the success that we had from the Cloud Skills Challenge and apply it to other areas of the site. I soon learned that just providing tools was not enough. Tools and templates will not create behavior change. If you really want to transform a team and catalyze change, you need to minimize friction and maximize desire at every step of the journey. The first step to reducing friction is identifying where the friction is. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I got after year 1 was that people still didn't know when to engage with the research program. Were we researching everything? All new features and content? What was the threshold for deciding whether or not we need to do a study? When was it okay to move forward without research? What people wanted was a clear articulation of when and how to engage with the research program. And what does that engagement look like? When does research become recommended or required? People also wanted a decision framework for understanding how to prioritize research, assuming that we can't and don't want to research every decision or every feature. Lastly, people wanted a common set of research-related practices and competencies with clearly defined resources that they could use to improve in these areas, also known as training. In her book, Dare to Lead, Brené Brown talks about the idea of painting done. This concept is really about defining and sharing your expectations. It helps provide clarity and can facilitate growth and learning. It's important to have a clear idea of what success looks like once you reduce friction. Ultimately, the feedback that I got was that the program was providing resources but not driving consistency. And consistency is the sign of a mature program. People will feel like the program is really generating value when there are tools that people can use to create consistency. Research is a way to make meaningful connections between business groups and get people aligned. And others will feel like your program is successful when people are citing research priorities in other meetings and research is being used as a unifying force. Okay, so my first step in reducing friction and increasing desire was to give very clear directions. Anyone who has spent some time around young children knows that you need to give clear and concise directions, no extra words, and one task at a time. You do not tell a room full of preschoolers, "We're going to make this project using a pattern." Instead, you might say, "Let's take a look at this flag. The colors go red, white, red, white. What color do you think comes next?" "Yes, red, that's right. And what comes after that?" "White, exactly." Okay, so the pattern goes red, white, red, white. Similarly, you do not tell a team, "Go do research on things that you think will have a big impact." It's important to focus on one task at a time and be explicit. Remember, these people might be experts in their field, but they're all new to research. Humans are visual creatures. In fact, when it comes to the absorption of information, studies by 3M have shown that images and visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. I made this decision tree to help illustrate when teams should reach out about research. Since we can't research everything, I made a few clear distinctions. Number 1, we do research on things that are new. If it's not new for us, we've either likely done research on something very similar in the past, or there's other industry-wide research available. Number 2, we prioritize things that are customer-facing. If it's not customer-facing, it could probably benefit from some research. However, customer-facing things are prioritized. Next, I identified intervention points in the process where research should happen for maximum effect. There are 3 times when you're most likely to conduct research. In the problem discovery phase, which is usually at the beginning of the development process, you'll focus on identifying problems that your users are facing. Next, in the solution phase, you'll validate whether or not your solution is usable and if it addresses the problem. And usually you'll iterate on it a few times. Lastly, once your solution is live, you'll evaluate it and see how people are using it, and whether or not it meets expectations and how it's performing from a KPI perspective. After establishing clear expectations and outlining the times when research can have the maximum effect, I turned my focus to how it could help bring people along in the journey. Just like preschoolers, everyone needs a little hand-holding when doing something new. We established a self-service consultative model. Essentially, that just means that our team helps PMs and content writers perform their own research, and we offer help and consultation along the way. We provide just-in-time training based on adult learning theory. An adult learning theory states that adults prefer to learn from doing and enjoy hands-on experiences. They're interested in learning something that has immediate relevance. And lastly, they prefer to solve actual real-world problems. When team members reach out about doing research, we ask that they complete a few e-learnings before we grant them a user testing seat. Next, we work with them to apply the knowledge they've learned, and in essence, we equip them with tools to solve their very real-world problems. We provide a whole host of grab-and-go templates for every step of the process. Everything from the initial reach out, which is a research request, all the way through to writing up a study plan, inputting their test into user testing, and then sharing the results. We tested these templates and gathered feedback from folks as they used them. This significantly helped us to reduce friction. It let us identify where people were getting stuck, what was unclear, and what was confusing. In the end, we drastically simplified these templates and provided examples to let people know what good looked like. Another technique that I borrowed from early childhood education is something known as scaffolding. Scaffolding is a method of teaching that involves providing resources to support students as they learn new concepts. As students develop these skills in those areas, the supports are gradually removed so the student can accomplish the task with no assistance. This concept was developed by psychologist Lev Vygotsky. He also coined the term the zone of proximal development, which essentially states that there's a difference between what someone can learn on their own as opposed to what can be learned with the assistance of another more experienced person. Similarly, we recommend that people who are new to research start small. We provide a lot of guidance and set up a series of meetings to help provide help as people move throughout the process. Maybe their first study is just testing the current experience or a competitor's experience. Next, perhaps they test just one feature or one interaction. As they become more and more comfortable doing research, they can tackle bigger and more complex problems. And as the team becomes more comfortable doing research, the amount of researcher hours needed to assist employees decreases. Next, I want to talk about the importance of routines. Routines are a great way to build confidence and know what to expect. According to Dr. Peter Gorski of Harvard Medical School, knowing what to expect from daily life can help a child develop confidence. Being able to rely on past experiences in a safe environment helps a child feel comfortable performing the same tasks over and over, such as putting on pajamas, so that when they do it on their own, they already know how to do it. When a child routinely performs the same activities, it may just seem like an organized way to get things done. However, this repetition creates habits around healthy activities, which the child can then carry later on into life. Similarly, we aim to create habits around doing research. There are many ways you can operationalize research and make it part of the process. In my experience, I went into our roadmap and shared previous studies when they were available. I also added a section in our spec template for customer research. This way, at the very beginning of the feature development process, PMs are already thinking about how and when to engage with research. Be proactive. Reach out to people who are working on things that you think have a potential need for research. Everyone's really busy, but if you try to make it easy for people to engage, you'll get a lot more done. And lastly, set expectations for what the process looks like and how long it will take. On our research request form and in all of our documentation, we note that research takes time. We explicitly say the research process takes at least 2 weeks lead time. We will not be able to help you with something that is launching tomorrow. Lastly, I want to talk about sharing results. I'm sure we can all agree that research is only useful if it's shared. There's a famous quote by Greg Bernstein that says, "Unseen research is a wasted research." In this last section, I want to talk about some techniques for sharing results. Sharing results is extremely powerful because it both reduces friction and increases desire. I found that the best way to show impact is to highlight stories of people who've had good experiences. For example, ask people who've performed studies to share their experience at a Lunch and Learn. Highlight one study every month in your monthly business review. Include these learnings in your state of the business. Plug into the channels that already are available to you and highlight the great work that's being done. This will not only inspire others to participate, but will also provide recognition to those who are already participating in research activities. Another approach that has worked well for me is to include different stakeholders from across the team in your studies. When there's more people doing research, you can bring in more perspectives. For example, we interviewed users about how and why they re-engage with our sites, and we included PMs and content developers in these interviews. During these sessions, they could ask much more nuanced questions than I ever could about migrating a system or building an app because they have deep technical knowledge of the space, and therefore they were able to understand the participants' issues on a much deeper level than I could. Afterwards, when these team members returned back to their respective teams, they became ambassadors for the research program, and in essence, force multipliers. This is a great way to make connections across the team as well. The next time those people are in a product decision or deciding which strategy to go with, they'll be reminded of the positive experience they had interacting with the research team and will be more likely to reach out in the future. Okay, I just covered a lot of information about different strategies I use to transform my team here at Microsoft. But how do you know they worked? And what were my results? At the beginning of the year, we set some goals to track if the changes we were making were successful. Those goals were to increase the number of studies by 40%, have at least 60% of the design team complete training, and shoot for 75% of our features that are customer-facing involve research. So, what were our results? We increased the number of studies by 80% year over year, from about 2 a month to about roughly 6 per month, which, if you recall, is in line with the recommended 2 hours at least every 6 weeks. We had 88% of the product and design team complete training, and we increased the number of customer-facing features that involved research by 561% in 1 year. Most importantly, we saved a ton of time because we did research up front, which allowed us to not make as many mistakes and avoid a bunch of rework. This also saved development hours and built a lot of trust within the team. In summary, reducing friction and increasing desire was what ultimately led to the transformation of the research program on our team. These basic concepts from my background in early childhood really had a massive impact on our team. In summary, remember to give clear directions, be explicit, and don't leave room for interpretation. Pick a few easy to remember distinctions and remember, these people may be experts in their field, but they're all new to research. Everyone needs a little hand-holding. Don't just expect that by providing templates, people will do research on their own. You need to make it easy for them to engage and bring them along. People, adults, kids, everyone loves routines. They help us know what to expect and to gain confidence. Remember, the sign of a mature program is consistency, and routines help everybody know what to do when and what comes next. Lastly, sharing is caring. Your research is only useful if it's shared. I want to wrap up with this quote from Laura Klein. It says, "Research in itself is not particularly valuable. It's only the application of that research to product decisions that makes it valuable. Making the research results available to everybody means that more decisions will be made based on real user needs. More people caring about customer needs and issues means better products for everyone. And scaling research is the best way for us all to create better experiences." Thank you very much.